I'm glad Henrietta addressed before she had to leave the foreign assistance framework. I mean, obviously, she said spoke truth to all of you, which is there have been some issues, there have been some clunky implementation aspects of this, but that by and large, the idea that impelled that the president and the secretary and the aid administrator to work on this is that there does need to be some kind of uniform system that we're measuring against in a complex world with many different manifestations and aspects. But the essence of the foreign assistance reform is to say that we have a unified, but broad, but unified set of management indicators, and we're all measuring whether we're doing mountain gorilla habitat or infant mortality reduction or microcredit lending. We're all focused on moving countries up a measurable scale according to some common measurement indicators. So I think broadly the new foreign assistance reform takes this issue on directly. Can we do better at it? Indisputably. But I think that's the essence of what's been tried in the last couple of years, and I believe that that's the way forward, both for the remainder of this administration into the next one.
The MCC and PEPFAR and malaria are three very specific, very well-defined initiatives of this administration. The MCC mission is to reduce poverty through sustainable economic growth. We are doing that, as I've mentioned, now in 13 countries, and although our programs are country sourced, they have established a general theme in that country source effort. Generally, there are road connectivity, there are some health aspects, there's some education, there's significant agriculture, there's increasing water and agriculture. Generally, those are the type of programs that countries are coming up with. And with those particular programs, with those country solutions for the reduction of poverty and for sustainable economic growth, we believe we will be more effectively in our narrow focus to have a greater impact and to achieve those objectives. Our programs have specific economic rate of returns at various points throughout the program. They're analyzed, monitored, evaluated, reevaluated. In some cases they are lower as we go along, in some cases higher, but we try and monitor these programs to achieve maximum impact as we go along. But as we are a specific and well-defined program and not, let's say, scattered in a number of areas, we hope to be able to achieve our objectives and our mission statement, which Lael referred to at the outset.
Lael, would you indulge me just one more, because I think it's important to mention this. The other thing that I envy John Danilovich's position, because he has very clear guidance as to what's to be accomplished. And I think one of the things that the group here obviously needs to grapple with on the short list is what we do about the Foreign Assistance Act. I don't think George Ingram was yet a junior staffer on Capitol Hill when the act was written, and I read it, I've read it, and unlike John, I mean, it's clear what the multiplicity of objectives is. Because if you're going to grapple with how to measure progress, I mean, well, what is the objective, right? And the objective is, of course, support our foreign policy goals within the U.S. government. That's part of what I'm told by law to do. Reduce poverty. That's what I'm told by law to do. Help countries end dependency. And that's what I'm told by law to do. And of course, I'm told by law to do, many, many other things. And some of those, however, are not necessarily consistent. The policy conditionality that's going to lead to economic growth and ending dependency sometimes obviously bumps up against national security and foreign policy issues. And so the question of how we fix the system, how we get on the same wavelength and the same measurement indicators at its source, requires us to go back to the basic statutes under which we are operating, and that requires us to take on the task that everyone has managed to successfully avoid the last 50 years, which is looking at the law, the Foreign Assistance Act.
To anybody who's contemplating doing the same, I don't recommend it. It's a bear of a piece of legislation. And I think if you try to count how many objectives our government is pursuing, there are about 50 of them at last count. So we probably do have a little bit of excessive ambition, and that law probably should be rewritten. And that gets to our final question, which really goes to the President, not Congress, but they are absolutely both essential partners in this. if you were the next president, and the last time I checked, neither of you were considering running, but you're welcome to use this platform to change your plans if you'd like. How would you elevate development and diplomacy in the public debate on the Hill and more generally to the position that it really merits in the U.S. public consciousness?
You go first.
I think we're all very much aware that the image of the United States abroad has suffered dramatically in recent years. I don't happen to believe that is entirely the result of the Iraq War. I think it's a matter of a number of factors, post-Soviet factors, and simply the matter of other areas of the world assuming their new definitions as we move into the 21st century. Nevertheless, the reality is that the image of the United States is not what it was or the way we remember it a while back. I think we need to do all we possibly can to improve that image. I think development assistance is certainly part of that. I think effective development assistance is equally as important as guns, not to diminish that necessity for our country. But I think the development efforts that you are all making and that we are all making throughout the world also need to be used effectively as an instrument, frankly, of American public diplomacy. I'm not ashamed in saying that. It's our money, and I think we should get some results for it, not only in terms of the improvement of humanity, but also in terms of recognition for what the United States, in its generosity, in its wealth, has always done, and I hope will continue to do for the world. And I hope the new administration, whoever it may be, will continue to focus on development assistance and coordinate these efforts and bring greater emphasis to them so as to achieve that objective for the benefit of the United States of America. It's something I believe passionately about, whether that is through the creation of a Department of Development Assistance or through greater coordination of malaria, PEPFAR, MCC, or USAID, which has a much broader mandate. These all need to be explored, and something does need to be done, I think, to build upon the foundation, the good foundation. There's nothing wrong with what we've done. I think we just need to move now to another more effective way of achieving our objectives and, frankly, for receiving recognition for the objectives and for the impact that we have had throughout the world.
I try to look at all the public opinion polls and elite opinion polls. Those are what people think about foreign assistance. Many of you have looked at the same kind of thing. And what, people are interested in being generous. The good news is, and maybe in part the work of the Center for Global Engagement, people understand. The good news is that people understand that what happens in the developing world is critically important to us. Whether you look at it through a national security lens, an AIDS lens, or whatever, that's the good news. After 9/11, what people are not convinced of is that there's a link between the dollars we send overseas and the effects that they hope to achieve overseas. And I think much of the answer lies in clarity of purpose. I think that's why Mark's program and John's program have enjoyed the success that they have in terms of mobilizing support. And I know John has had, the particular appropriations issues you grapple with, but people understand what we're trying to do with the Millennium Challenge Corporation. They understand what we're trying to do with PEPFAR. And to me, that's the answer. If you want to mobilize public support, if we said tomorrow that the president just announced another basic education initiative, to me, that's the right track. If we convinced the American public that we were going to go on a global effort to eradicate illiteracy from the face of the earth in the next 25 years, A, the American people would understand what we're talking about, B, we could all agree on measurement indicators, and C, therefore, I think you would get dramatically increased levels of support. Because of the complexity of our many objectives, the American public loses that sense of purpose. So I think there are some structural fixes, both within the bureaucracy and within the statutes, that we need to take on if we really expect to mobilize this broad but unspecified wellspring of support and link it to foreign policy objectives we all support.